I'm going to talk about stress and how it plays a part in our body, our lifestyle, and how our lifestyle can contribute or distract from our stress levels. So it can either contribute to our stress level or it can actually pull away and help us to deal with stress. So when we think of like our practices. So in my practice, in my field of practice, we talk a lot about meditation and lifestyle changes. And it sounds like it's super overwhelming. For most people, they feel very overwhelmed by making any additions or changes in their life. And in reality, when we become more productive, it's because we get more linear in what we're doing. So if we can build practices, and I'll talk about practices with this clock, when we build our practices, this is where we build a foundation to be able to deal with stress because it's things that we can go to. And once they become habits, once they become just completely subconscious, like in the morning brushing your teeth or going to the bathroom, like we just do it because it's just what we've always did. And incorporating new practices take time, but once they become automatic, then they become something that we really fall back on when we become stressed. So I'm going to go through different aspects of that through this talk. I'm going to talk about mealtime, bedtime, routine. I'm going to talk more about pretty heavy on the night before because our night before will impact how we feel the next morning. And it's obvious, but I'll make it even more obvious in just a little bit. So, a little bit about me. I am an Ayurvedic practitioner. That means I practice Eastern Indian medicine. I am a strong believer in this practice because it's one of the oldest medical practices in the world. In fact, they believe it's the first one. So, Chinese medicine would have actually been a branch of Ayurveda. And they're very similar. We use elements, we use the focus on elements and the focus on all of the aspects of life to be able to heal the body and really getting to the root cause. So, not the superficial, oh my gosh, I feel stressed, I feel anxious, but why? Just like when we look at things in our life that we enjoy or that we want to create in our life, you want to be able to create some sort of attachment to it. So, if you really want to make changes in your life, you don't want to focus on, okay, I want to do this or I want to do it someday. How often do we say that? I want to do this someday, or I'd really like to do this someday. Well, someday could be on your deathbed, and then it's kind of a little too late then. Versus putting some attachment to it. Why do you want to accomplish that? I see that a lot with my clients who want to lose weight. They're like, I would just love to lose, 10 pounds. Well, why? Well, so I feel better, I'm healthier. But really, why? Because I want to be able to play with my grandkids. Okay, that's a bigger impact. So realizing if you want to change things in your life, you have to put some sort of emotion on it. I also am a yoga therapist, so I don't just teach yoga classes, which I've been doing. I've been teaching yoga since I was 18, so that's 24 years. And but yoga therapy, I go much deeper. So we use all aspects of breathing techniques and mixed with some Ayurvedic stuff and a lot of other things. So I do multi different modalities together, which is a lot of fun because I can say, okay, this works better for this person. So, just to give that out a little bit, and then I'll go into what Ayurveda is. So, Ayurveda is about 4 or 5 thousand years old, give or take a little bit. It's an old practice. The basis of it is that nature's laws rule us. So the seasons obviously have effect on us because we're not going to go sit out in the sun tomorrow. Well, not here, not in Minnesota. We're not going to go sit out in the sun, but we adapt and we have different things that we do during different seasons of the year. Well, there's not only seasons of the year, there's also seasons of life. So we have the beginning part of our life where we're developing. We have the middle part of our life where we're making babies or we are growing a career. And then we have the later part of our life where we're retiring and we're supposed to be winding down. But in our society, we see a lot of people in their golden years, so to speak, that they are actually amping up quite a bit because they're double caretaking or they're doing a lot of other things and not necessarily the fun grandparent things but more of the parenting things. So it is just the way our society is right now and what we choose to do. Versus the parents moving in with us and us taking care of them in our midlife. So it's just a different aspect of life. And then we have the time of day. So that's when we get to this clock right here. So if you can write this clock down, this will be kind of what I teach off of. And it's a line through the center and then an X and then 10 a.m., noon, 2 p.m., 6 p.m., 10 p.m., midnight, 2 a.m., and 6 a.m. And then once you get that written down, we're going to go through certain parts of your life. So think about what time you usually go to bed and then mark that down on the clock. What time do you usually go to bed? What time do you usually wake up in the morning? And if it's a little different on work days versus non-work days or weekends versus during the week, put that in there too. So what time you go to bed, what time you wake up. And then write down what time do you eat your breakfast, if you eat breakfast. What time do you eat your noon meal? What time do you eat your supper? So I call it supper. Supper translates as something a little extra. And it was changed to dinner because of the Industrial Revolution, because the people would go to work a shift during the day. So the smaller meal would be in the middle of the day, and then our larger meal will be at night. And that's carried into our lifestyle right now, which is not beneficial to our health at all. And I'll touch a little bit on that too. If you snack, write down when you snack, or if it's just kind of a smear all over the day, then you can just kind of say, well, it's kind of all day. When you have your bowel movement. When you exercise. So if you're kind of a morning exerciser, maybe do a little bit in the evening, you can put that. If you go for a walk at noon, something like that. Walking does count as exercise. It's moving. Right now, anytime you can move your body is something in the right direction, because we sit so much more than we ever have. Especially those of us that are working from home or full-time working from home now. All right, so now I'll go through the clock. I have a philosophy that I call the bookend philosophy. And the bookend philosophy means you want to start and end your day the same. So usually we're pretty good about starting our day the same. We wake up probably with an alarm clock. We have certain things that we do in a certain order. And then we get started with our day. And some of that depends on how hard we pack our morning. So if we get up a little too late, do we feel frantic? Are we jumping up because of the alarm clock? We want to make sure that we're really trying to create a morning of balance, because that will show us what the rest of our day is going to be like. Because if we start already late and frantic, more than likely it's going to lead on to anybody else that's influenced in our life. So if we have people that live in our house, our kids, our grandkids, our family members, our partner, then it's going to impact our relationships with them. And that's key for the morning and for the evening also. So the evening time, we want to make sure that we're winding down and we have time to be able to wind down. Many of us that work on computers a lot, we'll work during the day on our computer, and then we'll eat, and then we'll work on our computer at night again. And this does not help our sleep. It doesn't help our bodies to be able to heal and to be able to recover. And it doesn't help our stress level out at all either, because we need to be able to do some of that self-care. And I'll get into self-care in a little bit. So we want to be able to make sure that we are starting and ending our days pretty much the same. And then as we start to add practices, then we start to change things a little bit. And this is where sometimes it's nice to work with like a practitioner, or, do a course or something on it to be able to build that structure. So you have kind of these little hints to be able to go along the journey. But we want to make sure that we're getting up about 6 a.m. And in the wintertime, especially in the northern climates, it's nice to be able to sleep in a little bit. But once we start sleeping in a little too late, our body actually starts to get more of a heavy tendency. And in Ayurveda, we talk about different constitutions, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And I won't sling much of the lingo because it's not necessary for me to teach this. But the constitutions have certain elements to them. And in the morning, the element is very heavy and dense. And if you think about morning time, especially in the spring, it's very damp and heavy. And we want to be able to move that energy out. So starting your morning with cleansing practices like washing your face and washing your eyes and kind of cleaning out your ears and getting all the gunk out. Or if you're a shower taker, taking your shower in the morning. I'm an evening shower taker. I do it for other various reasons, because I put oil on my skin to help me sleep. But it depends on the person at that point. So we want to make sure we're getting up about 6 o'clock, because then we hit that teetering point of hitting that heavier element right in here. So we want to get up in this lighter time of the day. Then we want to eat our breakfast about 9 o'clock. So 9 o'clock, any later than that, then you start to run in to the point where you're going to hit in towards your noon time. And we don't want to do that because we want our body to get enough time to be able to get hungry again. Not snacky hungry and not stress hungry, but actually hungry again. And we talk a lot about in Ayurveda having at least 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours between the time that you eat your next meal, other than at night, or if you're doing some sort of fast. And in Ayurveda, we don't do fasts. We don't fast out the morning, because what is the first meal of the day called? Breakfast. Break the fast. So it's one of the most important for a different reason. It's the most important because it breaks our fast. And it doesn't have to be huge. So if you're not a big breakfast eater, a little bowl of berries, that's perfectly fine. The idea is just to get your body going and realizing that it needs to eat. And we want to eat at the same times all the time, because our body releases hormones that make us hungry and that help us feel full. It's called ghrelin and leptin. They're two different hormones. And ghrelin helps make us feel hungry. Leptin helps us to feel like we're full, like we're sedated. So we want to make sure that we're eating at just about the same times every day. And sometimes that's going to be earlier. So, I mean, if you decide you're going to eat your breakfast earlier, that's perfectly fine. Mine's at 9 o'clock. Like I've decided that that's my key time, because my yoga classes, I've either taught before that or I teach right after that. So it works fine for me. Yours might be a little bit earlier, but you don't want to have it too much later than 9 o'clock. No snacking. Good time to get hydrated is in this time of the day, because we want to encourage our body to be able to digest food and to make sure that we are really hungry at times. So first thing in the morning, actually, I want to talk about is drinking lemon water. So lemon water, you take, you can do a quarter of a lemon. I do half of a lemon, but make sure you clean it out, like you gut it out, not put the whole thing in there, because the outside of the lemon is really, really bitter, and it makes it taste really bitter, where just pure lemon tastes a lot better. So you can either use a quarter or half. And what that does is, outside of our body, lemons are acidic. Inside of our body, they're alkalining. So that means when we take it in, it actually starts to alkaline our body, and it helps our body to release the toxins that we've been trying to get out of our body all day, all evening, or all through the night. Okay, so lemon water in the morning, and on the warm to hot end. So I'm a hot lemon water person. I drink it every single morning. Highly recommend getting into practice. It's a great way to get a bunch of liquids in first thing in the morning, before coffee or anything else, because coffee is extremely acidic. And adding a little bit of cardamom and then some dairy to it. So if you're non-dairy, you can do the almond milk or something, but adding some heaviness to it will help too, because it'll help it last a little bit longer, and it won't make it as shaky, or you as shaky. So just something to kind of think about. And then we want to eat our noon meal as close to noon as possible. So I usually say between 11:30 and 1:30 is the key time, but try to make it as consistent as possible within that time frame. Our digestion is the highest here. So think of the sun. Sun is the highest at noon. Our digestion is the highest at noon. So we can digest more stuff that's harder to digest. So foods like meats, dairies, pizza, that kind of stuff, multi-dimensional food. Where in the evenings, we want something that's much lighter. So for those of us that were farm kids and grew up on a farm, we didn't fall into the fall of noon meal and then this being dinner. Our noon meal was called dinner. So we ate a huge 5-course meal, and then we had something a little extra at night. So our meal was much smaller. It was usually leftovers that were made into a super stew for night. So think about that also when you're preparing your food. I know that if you work out of the home, it's going to be harder to be able to create that big meal at noon, but there's ways to be able to do that. And then we go into the afternoon, and we do not want to snack during the afternoon. Snacking actually really, it affects our digestive system because it shuts it down from processing all the way through. We want our digestive system to run all the way through. And then we head into the evening, and this is when we want to eat supper, is around 6 o'clock. 6:30 at the latest. Once you start get to the 7 and 8 o'clock, it's getting way too late. And even when I teach my yoga classes, so on Monday I teach from 4:30 until about 8:15, and on that night I fast. So I eat my last meal at noon. I might have an apple or something, but usually I go ahead and I just drink a lot of teas and a lot of fluids, and I fast the rest of the night. So it's, there's some ways around that. If you have a family, so this is where family, and especially if you have kids that are in sports, so their sports are going to be right in this chunk of time right here, right? So if you can eat, as a mom or as a parent, if you can eat at 6 o'clock or even at like 4:30, and then you can make your food for the rest of your family and have them eat whenever they're going to eat. But if you're looking at your health and you're trying to create more balance and stability in your hormones, and you're trying to lose weight, maybe the timing is the key. So when I work with my clients that are trying to lose weight or trying to manage their weight, I don't necessarily look at what they're eating unless they're eating really, really bad. But if they're eating pretty decent food, I don't even look at that right away. I look at what time are you eating. That is far more important to train your body to be ready for food so it can properly create the right enzymes and the right digestive process. And this creates a lot of stress in our body. So if we're creating stress by snacking all day long, it contributes to the rest of our stress in our life, because those of us that are, snacking and snacking and snacking or overeating, we feel lethargic. We don't have energy, or we're using supplemental energies where we're taking a lot of caffeine or taking in sugar or chocolate or something like that. So we also want to make sure that we're doing things at the right time to help let our body not have to think so much, so it can work on the external stuff and processing stress. This time of night, we want to be winding down, and it's a really good time for family time. So this is when we want to create some sort of routine. And being in the northern climates this time of year, if you're not a winter person, then activities in the house or doing things together is a great thing to do. If we can get outside, going sledding, if you're a winter person. And then of course, when the weather gets nice, then we can do more of that kind of stuff. So working on being able to create some sort of family time, this not work time. This is not the best time to work. Our brains don't work the best. And we want to be able to wind down. We don't want to start amping up and releasing cortisol. So the stress hormones that our body releases is a little bit of adrenaline, and then we release cortisol. And cortisol stops melatonin production. What does melatonin do? Melatonin is a molecule that signifies when night is happening. Okay. I'm very careful with what I say, because so many of us think that melatonin helps us sleep. It doesn't have anything to do with sleep. What it does is melatonin tells our body it is time to change systems. So during the day, because this happens in nocturnal animals also, they have melatonin and they produce it at the same time that us daytime animals do. So that means that it's not for sleep, it's for system switch. So during the daytime, we have a system that pulls in information. So we're constantly pulling in stimuli. We're taking it through our ears, our eyes, our mouth, our nose, our touch. We're taking in constant stimulation, information, stress, whatever it may be. At night, we want our body to start releasing melatonin, because through the night, we process it. That's why it's important to go to bed around 10 o'clock. 9:30 is even better. 10's fantastic. 10:30 is cutting an edge. After that, you're starting to cut into the time that your body processes stress and detoxifies at a cellular level. So this is the only time our body detoxifies. It's the only time our body heals, because our body, our bones can't heal during the day when we're standing and moving and we're sitting on them. It can only detoxify, heal, and then process emotion. Yeah, I got a whole lecture on melatonin, but melatonin's pretty fascinating. I'm a little obsessed with it right now. But so, okay, so there's the clock. Talking a little bit about self-care. So I think often, as especially women, and a lot of times mothers are even worse. I saw that in my mom a lot, that we think that self-care is being selfish. And self-care isn't about getting our hair and our nails did. Self-care is about creating things in our life that we love to help balance out all the stress that we have. So just take a minute to kind of think of like 3 things that bring you joy that are super simple. Okay. So one of mine is, in the evenings, I go for a walk with my dog. My dog is my best friend. He's my fur child. And then I have my four feathery friends outside. But going for a walk with my dog in the evening is like our bonding time, because there's nobody out there, especially when it gets cold. And I can have him off leash. And he just roams and he sniffs and pees on things, and he's just himself. And it makes me so happy to see him as a dog versus this animal that has to be disciplined all the time. So that's like one of my things. Another thing is that I do a gratitude journal. And that's, sometimes it's just me at night with my hands on my chest saying, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful for blah, blah, blah. And the 3 things that I verbalize or I write down. And they're really good practices, because our minds are actually wired for negativity. We are hardwired for negativity, and not the negativity that we think, but because our body does not know the difference between real stress, a bear trying to kill us, and perceived stress, us worrying about what could happen tomorrow. So our body doesn't know the difference. And when that happens, it releases the same hormone structure that it does if we were being chased by a bear. So we get into a stressful situation or perceived stressful situation. We need to learn to shut it off if it's perceived. So if we find ourselves getting all worked up, adrenaline comes first, and then the cortisol is released. And what we want to do is we want to be able to shut down the cortisol before it happens. And you have a little bit of time, and doing, some breathing, some mindful, like you close your eyes and take a couple breaths and make sure they're out in and out through your nose, because it stimulates a whole nother network of systems. But it helps us to calm down. So, when they say, oh, just take a deep breath, it's like, well, that's easy for you to say. Just take the deep breath, like really just take a breath. It will help. So taking a moment to just be able to pull out of the situation will help you to be able to make a better decision about what you should do, instead of being reactive. So think of yourself being a little more reflective than reactive in the situation. So, 3 things that are self-care, they're super simple. And you can always work toward like fancier things later on in life. But reality is there's not much fancy stuff right now. Things just aren't fancy, right? Our life it's not glamorous right now. There's not much to do, but there are small things that we can do. Like maybe you go to the grocery store and you actually pick up a bouquet of flowers or something. Just keep it simple, because that self-care stuff, it is a reminder of like who we are in our essence. Yeah.